Well, I should have a book cover here for you guys to gawk at while I do my talky bits. So, let's see. There you go. Hey, folks, we are working on the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration supplement that we're going to be publishing on the DMsGuild to complement and flesh out mechanics for Spelljammer's Adventures in Space. We're going to do some weapons and system illustrations today, but let me check my signal, get to my intro, and then we'll get to work. So hold on real quick here. Meow, 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 meow. Hold on real fast. Figuring out my bits here, and channel, computer, channel, hello computer, channel, hello computer. All right, sounds good. All right, cool. Let's see. Beep, 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 beep. Let's see. I'm doing some mic checking here. That's good. Okay, cool. Intro spiel. Let me get through that real quick, and then we'll get to work. So, hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing game supplements that I publish online. I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition lately, specifically Spelljammer's Combat and Exploration, a book of more in-depth mechanics and rules for ship combat and exploration that is reflects the 5-foot scale that you would expect characters to act on foot running around inside of a dungeon or in a field. This provides similar mechanics at a larger scale for taking into account just how large ships are. So I publish work on the DMsGuild. There's a slew of links in the description down below to show other work that I've already done, probably about 150 some odd illustrations among those works for you to peruse. And if you're a D&D enthusiast, you can check out the rules as well. Consider making a purchase to support the channel. I've just posted that I'm live on Twitter, so if you want to catch notifications of when I'm live in the future, you can follow me at Phil Kearney. Otherwise, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon here to help boost the signal across YouTube so more people can see what we're doing. And so we built this book cover like around episode 12. You can check back through the Spelljammer art stream if you wish. Otherwise, today we are working on weapons and crew. This is back here in the book around page 28. Let's see. I'm getting over a little bit of a sickness, so forgive me any hacking and icking. I'm trying to mute out the camera to not, or to mute out the mic to not blow out your ears on that sort of stuff. But we have the ship roles that we've been discussing a little bit in past issues. Get through the different roles. Then you have controlling the actual weapons and crew. There's two types of, there's basically two classifications of weapons, which are ranged weapons and melee weapons. Melee weapons are built into the ship like rams, piercing rams, slashing rams, bludgeoning rams, grappling weapons like claws and tentacles. But then there's also two scales of weapons, which are mounted weapons for craft that are 50 feet or smaller in size, or siege weapons, which are equipped in vessels, which are ships that are larger than 50 feet in size. So we'll throughout the document here, we got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 pages of weapons and crew, which is scattered text about. So let's just flip through some of these things just to see the kind of page density that we have. Light density, lots of opportunity for us to drop in illustrations. Those illustrations will include tokens that we've created before to demonstrate the different the different components of these ships, as well as those actual illustrations of crew, ships interacting with each other. But as you can see, there's a ton of little, like this one doesn't have any real room for art, so we're just going to lock that one down. But anywhere you see a little spot here in the holes in the page, we can fill that with an illustration. You can also see here that some of these, yeah, we'll have to check out these boxes to make sure we like how see what we can do to make sure that these things all sit in frame properly. That's something I'll do offline. You guys I don't have to waste your time with me scooting text around to make sure they fit inside the borders, but that's something I have to work on. Lots of illustrations here. I'm just doing a quick spot check here to see Where heavy and light lifting is going to be. Any pages that are complete, like I don't need to put an illustration on this page. It's already pretty full. And here also full page. Don't need an illustration. Here. And whenever we finish a doodle, whenever we finish an illustration, we lock that page down as well. So kick on through, kick on through. This is a 108-page document total. Once it's live on DMsGuild, you'll be able to read it through cover to cover just to see what the mechanics are like. And of course, all the 60 some odd tokens for ships, creatures, and NPCs for the Lives of Axis will be included with this as well. So there's a spot illustration there. This page is full. Just locking down the variables here real quick. Neck, 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 neck. Yeah, there we go. All right, cool. So I'm not necessarily sure what we're going to put in each one of these. So we're just kind of going through that ideation process right now. That's what we do. Text. Let's see. Text is good. Go down to the next thing here. Let's see. I'll talk about each of these in more detail once the book publishes. We'll do a page walk to go from the front and the back end of the book and talk specifically about each of the mechanics that go along with all this stuff in it. But we'll have an opportunity to yammer about some of the stuff as we go. So weapons and crew, there's siege weapons and mounted weapons. There should be a high enough resolution that you can pause the screen and take a look at the text at any given time. Ship melee weapons, ship melee reach. To make a siege melee weapon attack, a target must be within reach of the weapons, determined by the number of squares a ship occupies. Examples: a hammerhead ship is a 250-foot long vessel, occupies 5 squares at the 50-foot scale with a reach of 150 feet. A spiderling ship is a 40-foot long craft that occupies 8 squares at the 5-foot scale with a reach of 20 feet. Ship melee weapon attack rolls, proficiency bonus plus your pilot ability more against AC of the target. Ship melee weapon scores a critical hit, double the damage. Many ship melee weapons can also be used to take one or more types of actions: grappling, ram, scuttling, as described below. All right. Hey, Hornetica, how you doing? So it looks like we're calling for a hammerhead ship and a spiderling ship. So I think probably the best way. Weapons and crew. Vessel tokens. And craft tokens. Once this finishes loading. Hoy to the vey. Oh, this one's chugging so slow because we already have a really large vessel token file as well as the weapons and crew file. They're both very large, and now the vessel is also large. I'm actually making my computer sweat. We're using I think we're using an i9 generation, 6200 Asus graphics card with 32 RAM. It's I've got some monster processing power available to me, but with stream rolling, music rolling, and multiple applications open on the desktop at once, it can be a bear. Hey, what's up? Doing all right? Currently tricking with art while working on my stuff. Hey, right on, man. Let's go with. It might just be, it could just be easy for me to, like, a lot of these illustrations that we've done, these ship tokens, are demonstrative of the size of the ships that we're working with. So I am, there we go. So fetching illustrations of these. Now, like that. I don't know if this is the proper way to do this or not. This is just where we're at right now. I mean, obviously I'll need to make the grids transparent when we actually do this, but right now I'm just dropping tokens in just to see if it looks good or not. Could be like that. And then we can no, that takes off page. That's not going to work. Hold on. Be here like that. That kind of works. We can mask. I think that might work. Let me clear that out. Yeah, transparency will make it easier, but I like how, yeah, I should get some transparencies going. Okay, cool. Well, anyway, we'll go ahead and be able to, so like the reach. Maybe, huh? Maybe instead, we need to do something like, maybe, this is what we futz with. I'm going to disable that. Reach. This should actually say vessels and craft. So let me make that change actually. see. Grids, grids, grids. I could, where's that down? So I'm gonna do the whole area. Maybe paste, and then free transform. Copy paste, duplicate layer, and then free transform equals. This is super rough. Vertical. Yeesh. Then mounted, the spiraling occupies. Yeesh, that's even more space. These are big space. Burp, burp, beep, beep, pew. This is gonna be like four. So the ships have the same sort of maneuverability and facing and attack abilities that a normal character would have in a dungeon. So when they're being depicted in combat in space, they have that same omnidirectional attack capability of being able to just turn on their access and attack something as though like we're a creature that had the hovering property. So this is the kind of reach that at the 5-foot scale, and this is the kind of reach that the Hammerhead ship has at the 500-foot scale. It could just be as simple as, well, making sure those things are centered up. I'll have to drop a full grid here. You know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Incomplete. Like, craft. And it's like 8. 4. Something like that, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. I don't honestly know what the right answers is for this. I've never done something like this before, so we're just kind of making it up as we go along, right? Chunk. Face. Oh, look at that drag I got. That computer is chugging. 3, 5 here, 3 there. Remember, space is occupied. This is a 5 by 5 area. Space, and further up in the chapter, it describes the spacing, that vessels have spacing that are 50 foot squares, while craft have spacing that fill 5 foot squares. So you get up to 10 by 10, which is 50 feet. That becomes basically the smallest size you can have for a siege weapon. So, or the vessel. We've already corrected that. Vessels and craft as opposed to siege mountain. Vessels have siege weapons, generally have siege weapons, while craft generally have mounted weapons. So that's the difference there. But we're trying to see. It's a lot of space. I don't really mind occupying it like that, but I want to see what we can do to make the vessel fill more area. Like, I don't feel like I need to. I probably don't have to have the entire area. That eats up so much area. It's maybe this, like this. Hey, Shiner. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're trying to figure out how's the best way to depict the scaling here. So the size of the vest. I am going to. This is starting to piss me off. Where are we on? Page 26. Cool. Let's do export. We'll drop it into interior pages, combat section, VC correction, and then options equals current page, documents, no properties, blip, blip, blip. So here's a single page PDF with a transparent background, which comes through as white. So when we go back into Photoshop here, we can then open Combat VC Correction, PDF. We can choose that specific page, extract it, select all the text, paste, zoom out, drop down to the text layer here. Page equals, there, corrected. Text, there. So when we're making vessels and crafts, the reach of them with melee weapons depends on the size of the ship. So we have the vessels and we have the crafts here. So if we're looking at a vessel that occupies, like say this Hammerhead ship, which is the largest ship that's in the Spelljammer's Adventures in Space, has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 by 5. That occupies a 5 square space. So 5 to 6 equals 150, which is an extra 3. So this thing has, its total area it would affect would be 5 for the ship itself, and then an extra 3 for the reach, and depicting it on the grid. And then like the Spiderling craft that we have, which is an 8 by 8 at the 5 foot scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 by 8. It fits in an 8 by 8 space here. When you're looking at the size of the craft, it's 7 to 8 spaces. It occupies, it has a 20 foot reach. This is just like medium-sized creatures can reach the adjacent 5 foot square. Large-sized creatures can reach 2 squares away, 10 feet reach. Huge-sized creatures, which occupy a 3 by 3 space at the 5 foot scale, 15 foot space, has a 15 foot reach. And then Gargantuan, which is a 20 by 20 space that it occupies, has a 20 foot reach. This mirrors that similarly. So, less so, but similar, if you get the gist. So, which is why we have to spell it out here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We could build, and I don't necessarily know how to depict any of this stuff. So that's what we're trying to figure out today. We'll duplicate the layer, and then we'll free transform. Bump, 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 bump. I mean, it's obviously flawed, but we'll waste our time with perfection later when you don't have to watch. Right now, I like to do ideation and like brainstorming ideas here on the stream because I think that's just more fun. It's more of the creative process. Once you lock down what the composition is supposed to be, then it just becomes a grind on detail and perfection. And grinding detail and perfection isn't necessarily good media. So, but yeah, good. So like if we have a, like how would I do this sensibly? Like, 2 equals 5 and like 3 by 3. Equals 2, and then like 4 by 4. Oops. Yeah. Meow. Meow. And I've done 2 of them, so then it'll be... Yeah, I don't know if that's... Really strange that it says space occupied reach in different metrics. Well, that's there's 2 types of crap. Thanks for the feedback, by the way. And Donnie, welcome to the team. Hey. So the way this works is that you've got vessels like hammer ships and living ships and shrikes and squid ships. These occupy, like, this is a 250-foot long ship, so it occupies 50-foot squares. While vessels are fighter craft, this is a 50-foot square here, so these occupy 5-foot spaces. So like this here, the spiderling craft, it's 40 feet long, so it occupies 8 squares, where as opposed to like this mantis ship is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, also 8 by 8. We got like say a goblin arrow occupies a 3 by 3. So these things operate at the 5-foot scale. So if you're if we're depicting ship-to-ship combat and you've got characters on deck, then these things fit inside this. They're much smaller, so you can have a character, and this is a mounted weapon that would be able to fire like a harpoon flinger, like from Descent into Avernus. Effectively, little fighter craft like this are basically infernal war machines from Descent into Avernus that use the same mechanics as vessels use, but they're just at a much smaller scale. So like these little, if I were to grab one of these like this, this would actually sit about that big. So you could have a squadron of these, 3 of them in a merge. You have 3 of these sitting inside of a 50-foot square in comparison to the size of this 50-foot squares of the squid ship. So if you have a carrier ship that's dropping fighter craft on, you can have these fighter craft engaging the squid ship at the same scale, at this 50-foot scale, while you're operating on a larger ship map, like a space map operating at the 50-foot scale. These could all be operating in the same language. If you're going to zoom in to the deck plan of the ship at the 5-foot scale, then these are still compliant at that 5-foot scale. You could then unload creatures from the ships onto your deck, and you can continue to engage at the 5-foot scale, which we have previously discussed before, but I think you're new to the team, so you don't see all the pieces of the equation at the same time. But that's essentially what we're playing with here, is creating a means of being able to move from the 5-foot scale to the 500-foot scale, and having smaller fighter craft to be able to engage both at the 5-foot scale and the 500-foot scale at the same time. So fantastic. It's just, you're just stepping into it raw. This is page, God, what is this page? I am so happy that after just a moment of explanation, this makes sense to you. This is 108 pages of document, and like further up here towards the front of the book, like there's ship rules on like how to use your character's actions, bonus actions, movement, and reactions to do stuff on the ship while you're fighting. Like when the team is using a ship, essentially that ship becomes everybody's self. Like when you target self with a spell, the entire ship is self, and everybody on that ship is essentially self as well. Like here we're looking at like the 500-foot square at a very small scale, and like here's an asteroid base with a fleet of ships that are surrounding it. So I have to finish this map, but this gives you a sense of scope. That you could have like 500-foot scale squares here that a single ship would fit inside of, 50-foot scale, and then a 5-foot scale. So we'll have different depictions of the maps. And we have all 3 of them operating at the same time. And when you're in like roll 20, it's easy for you just to parse out different scales maps. So if you close distance enough to be at the 50-foot scale, then you just drop them in there. But here we're looking at map scale and weapon ranges. So you can see how this 500-foot scale, it's a single square, so it doesn't matter the size of the ship. They're going to fill that space because we're depicting on the map. The 50-foot scale, here you can see how these crafts look, and then the 5-foot scale. So, and we provide tokens. We back around episode, I want to say around episode 60 of the Spelljammer stream, we were building all of these tokens. So there's 65 tokens that we include with the supplement when it publishes, so that you'll be able to have these ships engaging at the 500-foot scale, 50-foot scale to dogfight, and then 5-foot scale for boarding. So you don't need to be at the 5-foot scale unless you're specifically within reach like this to be able to board each other. Otherwise, it's much more efficient for your table to have a grid where you're operating at the 50-foot scale, where you can have fighter craft up to, depending on the size of them, like you saw with the arrows, you can have 3 arrows occupying 1 50-foot square easily. So the DM can depict them with tokens. And like if you had in the example of the vessel, if you wanted to have 3 vessels in the square, you can just you can just take a D6 and put a 3 on it to indicate that there's 3 craft on that specific square. And as the team shoots down different craft, you just roll down the die until it's 0, and then you get rid of the token. But you can depict any size combat this way, but ships have a limited reach in the 500-foot scale, so you don't need to have combat scale beyond 500 feet. Like 1 mile scale, you can't attack each other. So there's no sense in having combat at the 1 mile scale. But if you're in pursuit and you're doing chases, then you could depict them at the 1 mile scale until they can close distance, at which point you would then start engaging in combat at the 500-foot scale. So, but each of these 500, if I had, I could have 2 or 3 of these Star Moth ships inside of one 500-foot space, because this is only 250 feet wide. If I were to zoom out and this were to be, a 500 by 500, I could easily fit 4 or potentially even 8 squids inside of that 500-foot space. So that becomes a squadron that we would then, again, denote with a D10. You could put 8 squids in that squadron. And then we have mechanics later on in the book about how to express squadrons as something that a team can control. Kind of like how you can control a catapult or a ballista with a crew of creatures to fire that ballista. Similarly, a squadron commander can command a squadron of ships to coordinate their movement and attacks, as though the siege machine, if it was on wheels, you can move the siege machine around and then fire it. So same sort of ideas. But hey, the only ship combat I have ever checked out is Travelers, and the abstract measures is short to medium, far. But if boarding is important, that makes sense. Well, in Spelljammer, boarding is everything, because it's the only thing that Wizards of the Coast offered. You may not be familiar with Wizards of the Coast Spelljammer, but the way that they built it was they suggested that you close distance as fast as possible and then have creatures board each other's decks to a fight at the 5-foot scale, because that's what D&D is coded for, fighting at the 5-foot scale. So we had to create a system that would be more dynamic, that would allow for actual dogfighting and ship combat. So that's what this book is all about, is creating those mechanics so that you can conduct ship combat as though it were just normal 5-foot scale creature combat where everyone can fly. So it's essentially everyone's either a pixie or riding a Pegasus or riding a dragon. These are all things that can fly. So if you're in aerial combat, D&D combat basically just allows you to maneuver around the 5-foot scale in and outside of each other's range to make attacks at each other, either with ranged attacks, area of effect like breath weapons, or close within reach to do claw bite sort of melee attacks. So we provide all those things using the ship combat. It's just that it's a much larger scale because they're ships instead of just a horse, for instance. So, but right now we're just trying to figure out what's the best way to depict this stuff. And this is where we're at right now, which might not necessarily be the best solution. 5-foot square, 3-foot reach. Maybe a different way that we could do this. And this is that ideation stage. So we got without with less to do. Here's our hammer ship. And like, we already know it occupies a 5-foot square space. Maybe I just need to make it smaller like this. I don't know, because this is the example that I have, right? Hammerhead ship is a 250-foot long vessel that occupies 5 squares at the 50-foot scale with a reach of 150 feet, while a spiderling ship is a 40-foot long craft that occupies 8 squares at the 5-foot scale with a reach of 20 feet. So once we start establishing the way that these things are supposed to look, we can move through the document much quicker because we'll have an established visual language for expressing things like this. It's just, this is our first challenge. So this is what we have to do. If I can do a good job at it, the visuals should help reinforce the language of the text. So if I can provide 2 means for people to learn how to use this stuff, it means that twice as many people are going to get it. So that's the big challenge that we have, is making this thing make sense. So 150. I could do 250. It's always craft equals round space occupied divided by 2 times 5 feet. That is correct. That is correct. But I want to have a visual representation of it, like the craft here is 8 equals 4. That might not be the best way to depict this. I mean, we can definitely use the token assets that we produced while we're doing this. It's just a matter of how am I supposed to visually represent the reach? Like, what's the best way to do that? Maybe it's maybe I can hammerhead 250. See, the thing is that they don't. It doesn't have. It's not directional. It's like in D&D, you can attack in any direction, whether you're flying or on the ground or swimming. Similarly, these ships can attack in all directions as well. So I don't want to limit my scope to being like this, because then somebody might think, oh, I can only attack in this direction. When in reality, you can attack in any direction, because that's how D&D combat works. So it has omnidirectional facing, omnidirectional movement, omnidirectional attack capability, just at a larger scale than what a normal character would have. So, and the problem that we have, that anyone would have with, say, D&D Beyond, if we go into here and we look at, let's say, sources, source book, player's handbook, and we go down, like, say, into combat. Breaking up your move, being prone, creature size. Like, there's no, the issue that I have with the digital books is that there is no images in here at all. Like the table that we have is successfully reflecting this, right? Like, we're showing space in the same just table language that we have here in the player's handbook to depict size and spacing, but there's no visual reference here. And I want to say that in the print copy, mine's buried somewhere, but the print copy has like diagrams of creatures in the space that they can attack. So actions in combat, making attacks. Yeah, that is, I think they have these, there's just no diagrams. There's no diagrams. There's no sort of technical illustrations to assist with this stuff that they have on D&D Beyond. That is a trickiness. Hey, what's up? I'm thinking of something like a square crosshair for the vessel space, and then a circle for the... Oh! Or we can do circle square. We have bubbles. Like we depict the air envelope that these ships have. We depict them as bubbles. So actually, we could do circles for the ship and then squares for the range, because technically squares are circles in D&D. 1, 2. Ship, bubble. 250. I think you might be right, man. I have to be careful about closing off the ends, though, so that no one misconstrues, again, that you can't attack from any particular direction. So maybe something more like that. 2, 3, 2, 3. Like that. 2, 3. Boy, that's garbage. But yeah. Oh. Okay, great. So then, just like flanking. Flanking would make sense, right? So we could do 250. I bet that's the best way to depict this. Or, yeah, and have it behind here specifically to reinforce that it doesn't matter what the reach is. It's what direction it is. It's the reach. That could work, right? Google crosshairs. Potentially do something like that. Thanks for the input. Let's make a trash. Let's make a trash folder. Blump. Threw all that in the gutter. We got that, and then we got beep, 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 beep. That might work. Where was that? Burp and a burp. Free transform. Bum, 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 bum. Bum. Well, it's sloppy as shit. But I think it's a good idea. I think you're right about that. Okay, I'm pretty content with that. Honestly, I mean it's a hot mess, but I'm not finishing anything today. I'm just creating ideas, and that's probably the best way for us to be able to depict that. Tralfaz. There. Yeah, we can grid that in. I'll grid that in later, make it look pretty. But I think that's probably how. I mean, we'll work on positioning and shit. But I also I'm going to want to make sure that it's text. That's quiet. I'm going to make sure that these are a little bit smaller than this. Since they're not actual true to size, I want to use a little bit of a different scale so that it's not confused as to the scaling that we're working with. But I mean, that's a hot enough mess. That's a good start. That's a real fine way to start. So we'll close that up, and then let's work on the next bit. Did we accidentally get rid of something? No. Oh, we accidentally dropped the page background. This is problematic. Come on, buddy. Let's get out of there. Thank you. There we go. This guy's a little offline. What I'm going to do is I can take this this borderline print or template, and then drop it here into the individual pages, and then scoot the I can grab this box, and then I can scoot it. So when I drop in that border around everything, I'll be able to go through the book. I'll probably do that tonight. Just make sure that all these boxes are perfectly aligned, because certainly they aren't. That's where they need to be. Keep the gutters clean. Keep the gutters clean. So what are we talking about on this page here? We're talking about grappling. A pilot can grapple as a ship melee attack with any weapons that has a grappling weapon property, making a pilot check against the AC of the target object. An attack roll with a grappling weapon that hits results in the target ship being grappled. Siege grappling weapons can grapple creatures and objects up to 500 feet in size. Mounted grappling weapons can grapple creatures and objects up to 50 feet in size. And of course, as we indicated earlier in the document, vessels can have siege-sized weapons and mounted weapons, while craft can only have mounted weapons, and the scale is a factor of 10. So, effective grappling, the following conditions apply. Kind of like how you can't, like a medium-sized creature can't grapple a gargantuan creature. This similarly has those same limitations. Hopefully that comes across. And the following conditions apply while ships remain grappled. While grappling, ram and additional grappling attacks are rolled with advantage against the grappled target, and the grappling ship can use a bonus action to scuttle the grappled target, as detailed below. A ship that is grappled cannot move from its current square or increase the scale of distance from the grappling ships. We talked about scaling distance and pursuits and maneuvering and stuff like that earlier. A ship that is grappled can be towed by the grappling ship if its towing capacity allows. Ships that are so you can grab hold of a ship and you can drag it with you. Kind of like when you're grappling, you can drag somebody with you for reduced movement, just like in D&D 5-foot scale combat. Ships that are grappled are adjacent to the grappler at the 5-foot scale, and creatures can use the grappling weapons as difficult terrain to move between the grappling ships and the grappled target. A ship that's grappled cannot roll with advantage on saving throws to avoid being scuttled, because some ships can. And then a grappling weapon cannot be used against another target until the current grapple ends, though some grappling weapons can continue to deal damage to a grappled target as detailed below. Like a scorpion's pincers, they can deal damage each round automatically if you have a grapple on somebody. And then undersized grappling attacks. A craft or a creature 50 feet or smaller in size that grapples a vessel or similarly large targets can't effectively grapple it as detailed in the grappling section over here, because mounted grappling weapons can grapple creatures and objects up to 50 feet in size. Let's see. Above, because the target is too large to be controlled. Instead, you have a hold on it. Similarly, a ship or creature 500 feet or smaller in scale can hold onto a larger target. When you have a hold on a target, you cannot use the holding weapon or appendage of a creature, such as a hand or tentacle, and you cannot move from the space you occupy. While you have a hold on a target, it cannot use the disengage action to break alignment with your gravity plane. While you have a hold on a target, you have half cover against the ranged attacks and siege weapons, and a target attempting to break free from the hold rolls with advantage. So you basically get a grip on something, and disengaging, well, when we talked about this earlier, to get away from a ship, you have to disengage from it. Fighter craft and small vessels like this, once they get inside your gravity plane, inside of your bubble, like we were depicting earlier, these fighter craft, once these craft get inside of your air envelope like this and they align with your gravity, it doesn't matter where the squid ship goes. These fighter craft stay inside of that space. They're using your own gravity plane to stay inside of space with you, so they have like a lock on you. You can't get away from them. But you can use the disengage action to break that alignment. So if you disengage and then move, you can then get those fighter craft out of your space, which you need to do if you want to get the fuck away from fighter craft. So, but that, again, once you have a hold on them, like if you grapple, like these arrow ships, they have piercing rams. So they're specifically designed to puncture in and stick to your ship, so that you can unload crew onto the deck. They're boarding vessels. They hit your ship, and you stick to it, and then the crew offloads off of the ship onto the enemy carrier. And then later on, you can go and extract. You can pry them free later on after combat if you want. So once they get a hold on you like that, they can't shake you free. Is basically what it is. So anyway. So let's see, what we want to do is, and then down here, breaking a grapple. A pilot can attempt to break their ship free from a grapple by using an attack action or bonus action for each creature or weapon currently grappling it by rolling a strength or dexterity saving throw against the grappling ship's pilot DC. A ship that has grappled a target can choose to end the grapple during their turn without using an action. There you go. So we get to do grapple stuff. So let's see. And then we probably want to do undersized grappling hold attacks down here. I'm thinking like grapple here and then hold down here. So we get to actually like illustrate, like actually illustrate. Let's do, we can go with spider ship maybe. Like on a Shrike ship like that. Of course, Tyler. So many designs. Yeah, Ant. I do this 5 days a week. In the morning on Saturday, I do book cover commissions, and then Mondays and Thursday nights I do Eberron cartography. Normally on Tuesdays, I do mechanic development for the Martial Powers book that we're building, which is an alternate spell system for martials, specifically to do like smite stuff and maneuvers and exploits and blah-de-blahs. That's typically on Tuesday, but tomorrow's a holiday, and I'm going to be out running around. But I think that's fun enough. And then here, rough. Here we can do. Let's do a galleon here. Excuse me. Let me reduce this down a little bit. How do you write for characters who are supposed to be hundreds of years old? That is an eternal question. And it really kind of depends on the game system that you're using. D&D hand waves that you're hundreds of years old, basically stating that elves are stupid and don't know or learn anything until they become adventurers, and then all of a sudden they pop up from level 1 to 20 in the course of 2 months. So that's there is an ongoing inconsistency there. The way that I like to depict elves is that, if you've seen The Good Place, I won't spoil it for you if you haven't, but the way that they depict, boy, it's hard. It's, you'll have to watch The Good Place, the last season of The Good Place. Like, how can I be 200 years plus inhabitant of 10? Well, I mean, intelligence is processing power, really. Like your ability to put things together is, I would say, is probably the easiest way for you to portray intelligence. Like if you're a smart player, you might connect dots, but then you'll specifically depict your character not getting it. And if you do a good job with role playing, you could still have them like stumble into something, and it's like while they're complaining about being stuck in the dungeon forever, they in a huff lean against the wall, triggering the door to open, and they're surprised. For instance, like that's if you do a good perception check, like a search intelligence check, but you wanted to depict them being stupid, but they rolled really well, so you could lean into that sort of a narrative where they don't get it, but if their roll is good, shit works out anyway, despite them being stupid. Although 10 is normal intelligence, but I mean you can go to any degree like that, which is kind of a cheese answer. I don't think it's necessarily what you're asking for. I think the bigger challenge again is you live for hundreds of years, you've potentially learned so much stuff and have a sense of perspective about things, but yet how can you have like low rolls? You can be really empathetic and understanding, and from like a wisdom perspective, if you're looking at empathy as being a wisdom sort of thing in D&D, then you can simply not be very methodical about what emotions you're depicting in your character at the time, because they might not easily be triggered. Like they've been around for so long that they just kind of get that's how people or sentience works in general. So there's no reason to get pissed off when people do stupid shit, because after hundreds of years, you just know that people do stupid shit. if you have a low intelligence, you might understand this, but you still have no idea why they do it. You haven't figured that out yet. So you can have, if we're talking like wells of soul, like well of souls kind of idea, where people keep getting recycled back into the same, like back into body over and over again because they haven't learned their karmic lessons before they're able to ascend and move on to what's next. That's often depicted as like rich and influential people that are born into money are like low evolution because life is so easy for them. Their lessons are you don't always get what you want, as opposed to people that are born into poverty are already okay with knowing that, like, spiritually they already understand that they aren't going to get what they want, so they don't need to be born into a body that gets everything that it wants and still being unsatisfied. You're content with being dissatisfied with nothing already, but karmically you get it. So those type of people are dealing with different types of problems, like being kind to others, or family stuff, like not beating your partner or something like that, depending on whatever their karmic journey is. So you can depict creatures that live forever going through that same karmic cycle experience where they're at different stages of their life, and they may have a vague familiarity with what life may have been way in the past, but they've personally evolved to the point that they're having a difficult time even relating to their own history. Like I'm having a hard time remembering a lot, like other than the highlights, a lot of my own experience like at culinary school when I was 22. I'm 50 now. It's been forever. It's even getting hazy on the people that I remembered even being at the call center that I used to manage in Arizona. It's just I am having a hard time recalling other than just vaguely who those people were. So you can realistically forget entire legacies, entire quests that you've gone on. That doesn't necessarily resolve like your level and your aptitude and like different game mechanics that your character would have access to. That's a different issue. Let's see, like how karmic cycle, because it really already fits into character culture. Being karmic cycle is interesting. Good. Well, I'm glad I intuited an answer that jives with what you're attempting. Because, like usual, I'm just kind of talking out of my ass and what I've ran into before and how I've had to try to. It's like that elf issue is certainly not a new one. Like being able to depict immortal things has always been a challenge. So cool. I'm glad I could help. Question mark. A galleon is a 3x3 vessel, and the spiderling buttons, Kearney. Get the hell out of there! Thank you. Grid, thank you. So yeah, these little 50x50s and a galleon. It's a 3x3. For the memes. So Spiderling is a 40 by 40, so it almost fills a 50 by 50 space. So generally you only have one Spiderling per 50-foot square when you're dealing at the 50-foot scale combat. But if we're doing holding, like you can easily see that a Spiderling ship, a Spiderling craft could, 1, 2, 3 of them could be, well, they could have a whole slew of them swarming your ship. So that's what we want to depict here. I'm going to drop this back a little bit like that. Right on, Shriner. Good day, my dude. Good day. Thanks a lot for being here. Something like that. Perhaps. I could bend the perspective a bit here. Free transform. Perspective. Yeah, something like that. That's a decent sketch, and I think you'll get the point across. maybe I want to use a different. But the Night Spider is so iconic. Yeah, and the Night Spider and the Spiderlings, I think that's a really good way to... Okay, great. I'm happy with that. So that's a decent sketch. Decent sketches I can clean up. Let's see. Where are we at right now? Rams. So a pilot can make a ram attack after moving the ship in a straight line towards a target and using a bonus action to make a pilot check against the AC of the target. A vessel must move at least 500 feet towards the target, and the pilot can choose to stop at the 50 or 5-foot square adjacent to the target. The craft must move at least 50 feet. That should be at least 50 feet towards the target. Thank you. Let's get down there and fix that. Towards the target. I can't believe I missed that. Rams, ship weapons, scuttling, ram. A craft must move at least 50 feet towards. There. Perfect. Is that right? Is that right? Towards the target, and the craft stops in the 5-foot square adjacent to the target. If the attack hits, determine the result as detailed in the list of melee weapons section below. If a pilot flies the ship into an object without using the bonus action to attack, the ship instead crashes, as detailed in the collision section below. And then scuttling. After a successful melee attack against a target ship or similar structure with a gravity plane, as a bonus action, you can attempt to suddenly shift its gravity to align with yours, referred to as scuttling. The target makes a dexterity or constitution saving throw against a DC 15 or the pilot DC, whichever is higher. If the target ship has more hit points than yours, roll with advantage. If it has fewer hit points, roll with disadvantage. If the save succeeds, the target ship can choose to align its gravity plane with yours without any further effect. If the save fails, any creatures or objects that aren't secured take damage equal to a number of d6s equal to the number of 50-foot spaces the target occupies, minimum 1 bludgeoning damage. For example, if a hammerhead ship scuttles a wasp ship that occupies a 3x3 space, the crew and objects aboard the wasp ship take 3d6 bludgeoning damage from a collision. If instead the target is a skiff that is smaller than 50 feet, the damage is d6. Creatures can use a reaction to brace for impact, taking no damage. Siege weapons and crew under command of a creature that braces for impact also takes no damage, as detailed in the ship command roll above. A pilot is assumed to be in command of weapons and crew aboard the ship unless another creature takes command during their turn. Once two objects have aligned their gravity planes, neither can scuttle the other unless they break alignment, as detailed in the aligning gravity plane section above, which requires a disengage action. Hit points and size. As detailed above, the number of hit points a ship has is determined by the size of the ship. When a ship is damaged, hit points can represent hull integrity. As the ship takes more damage, its hull integrity is weakened. If a smaller ship currently has more hit points than a larger ship, it has more hull integrity than the larger ship, and so the saving throws against the damaged ship's scuttling attack are made with advantage. The DM can choose to declare the actual number of hit points an object has, or can instead confirm for players whether an object has more or fewer hit points than another, so they can make informed decisions without the DM specifically revealing the current number of hit points. The DM can choose which options is most beneficial to the adventurer. I don't like metadata, like I hit the thing and now I know whether it has, like, I know its resistances, or I know its immunities. I don't necessarily like metadata like that being in the game. Like, they have a +5 to hit. I prefer players make an attack and they tell me what they roll, and then I can tell them if they hit or not. I don't like providing the DC for things directly like that. Pathfinder thrives on telling you specifically what DCs are, because that affects critical hits and critical misses by hitting or missing the target by a skill of by a range of 10. So you actually need to have that metadata inside the Pathfinder game, and technically you could use this system with Pathfinder if you wanted to, but D&D doesn't require that you share that metadata for any specific reason, which is why I want to point out specifically whether you have to or not. So anyway, such as it is. So rams. So ram attacks, probably like a hammer ship, I think. Ooh. Let's do a squid ship. That would probably be really iconic to do that. And have it punch a hole through. Poor galleons. I'm always punching holes and beating up galleon ships. But I think they deserve it, honestly. And bring your stupid galleon into space. I'm going to punch a hole in it. And a squid ship's fun because it has those limbs, right? Hold on. Get rid of you. It's got these 2 extra expanses out there, but these things are you can move them like they're creatures. So I like to depict the grapple from the ship is that you've got a hole that you stabbed through the middle of the vessel, but then you got the tentacles that are all crawling around the top of the ship. I think that's sufficiently terrifying to be able to get the point across. Pardon the pun, point across. Way to go, Dad. Dad joking everywhere. Whoa, 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 whoa. Let's put you on a separate layer here, son. Thank you. This is these little spot illustrations are large enough that I can get some cool detail, but not so large that I have to like I could probably get this done like in maybe 3 or 4 hours. You know, that's a lot of illustrations that we're doing. That's concerning. That is concerning. Hey, what is up, Pops? Welcome to the mix. We're doing page art for ship combat for the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book that we've been creating. I do not need to have this page open, but here's a book cover in case you hadn't seen it. This will publish on the DMsGuild once it's finished. But it's about 108 pages worth of ship mechanics and how to explore space, like how to see objects that are in space, how to interact with them. Right now we're doing a crude illustration here of a squid ship ramming a galleon. Space galleon. There's a lot. Well, the problem is that we're rebuilding 5-foot scale combat for D&D at the 550-foot scale. So ships act as individual creatures, like vessels, like squid ships are like basically fit inside of a 500-foot square as a single square, similar to how a pixie in a dungeon would still fit in a 5-foot square, even though it's a tiny creature that's only 2 feet tall. It still is represented as sitting inside that 5-foot square. So it has flight. It can engage with other creatures at the 5-foot scale. It's just a creature in a dungeon. When you take ships and you scale them out to the 500-foot scale, that 500-foot square becomes a single 500 square. And then you have ships that are engaging at that 500-foot scale with each other. And then you can also zoom into the 50-foot scale, and you can zoom into the 5-foot scale to engage in actual combat on deck. And that 50-foot scale in between is a dogfight area where you can have ships engaging with each other with ship combat, melee ship combat, ramming attacks, scuttling each other, etc. So there is a little bit. We're basically having to rebuild the combat, spellcasting, and exploration chapters of the player's handbook and rebuilding them to work at the 550-foot scale to accommodate these ships, which is a really it's a testament to why Wizards didn't do it, because it takes about 70 some odd pages to explain all that stuff. Between spellcasting, combat, and exploration, adventuring, it's those different pillars of adventure at these larger scales takes a bit of mechanical language to explain. So I guess time will tell if we did a good job or not. And as a PDF, if we fuck up and we need to build it differently, if we get feedback from folks enough that says it doesn't work, then we can try again. But hopefully this thing plays out properly and people grok what we're doing. But right now we're working on scuttling. So let's see. Ooh, we can do we can do a skiff. Let's see. You got skiff. That's a skiff. So you got a piloting chair, you've got a mounted weapon, and you've got a full ballista. That's on basically, well, it's a skiff. It's a 20-foot by 20-foot craft. That if you're dealing at the 5-foot scale, it's basically the size of, an adult dragon or whatever. but it's just tiny compared to a squid ship. So it being able to carry a ballista on it and be able to rattle tat tat at larger ships makes it a fun little vessel, a little fighter craft to command. So it's overwhelming for about an hour. After that, you fall into this space, you figure it out, and you can easily move. Thanks, Tyler. Yeah, full disclosure, Tyler helped playtest this for, God, I think you were playing with us for like maybe 15, 20 some odd hours. So, but yeah, fun shit. It's a lot easier just to explain on the fly than it is to write it out. That's the problem with a lot of rules. Like, it's super, like, rules can be really simple to understand, but they take a lot of fucking text to explain, like, properly. Which is why I like to do walkthroughs. So once the thing actually publishes, we'll be able to do like a page-by-page, like, director cut walkthrough to to basically say in a couple sentences what might take a page to explain. Which is why we need to do illustrations and stuff to help provide that visual language to make sure that all the concepts are coming across properly. Let's cut that out and paste that. That's really good positioning there. I like using the holes in the text to create extra space for the illustrations. Or sometimes when I'm doing an illustration and I need to push in here, I will then instead go into Word and rearrange where the text sits to accommodate the illustration, which is a lot of the, I'm basically doing page layout and illustration at the same time here. I go with the initial layout where I know text can fit, but like if I need to push this square down or up to accommodate the illustration, I can do that. I have that freedom of movement, as it were. Oh my God, I've completely forgot to set any kind of timers at all today. So I've got 10 minutes left. glad I decided to take a look. I've got about 10 minutes left today, and then we'll have to pick this up tomorrow. But I think what I want to try to do here is get rid of that, get rid of that. There, and then we can just throwing people off deck. That's just fun. Shrink that down a bit. just like that. Pew pew. You probably can't see it quite yet. I don't have it properly depicted, but I need to get a harpoon flinger here built. I got a chair back here. Oh god, this is such sketch. So much sketch right now, but we'll clean it up. Transform. Something like change that angle just a touch. Yeah. Let's see. It's a homing. Roll 5d10, take out as much 500 feet, and then go in for 5-foot assassination. Yes, I think it was before the Avernus playtest. So it was so when I was reading the material. Yeah. It's it's fun stuff. I'll depict like that. Let's see. List of ship melee weapons. So there are various types of ship melee weapons as described below. Rams is a general term for ship melee weapons that are considered natural weapons for the pilot that are built into both vessels and crafts without occupying any space aboard it. The damage dealt by a ram is determined by the number of squares a ship occupies. Vessels typically occupy 2 to 5 squares at the 50-foot scale for siege weapons and are considered occupying 10 squares at the 5-foot scale for mounted melee weapons. Craft occupy 2 to 10 squares at the 5-foot scale. Space occupied. Damage. The vessels occupy. I should again change that to vessels and craft instead of siege and mounted. So let's go down there and vessels. Vessel craft. Example, a hammerhead ship is a 250-foot long vessel that occupies 5 squares at the 50-foot scale. The bludgeon ram attack deals d8 times 10 bludgeoning damage. A spiderling ship is a 40-foot long craft that occupies 8 squares at the 5-foot scale. The piercing ram attack deals 4d8 piercing damage. What I like in particular about this is that a 50-foot mount, a 50-foot craft is a single 50-foot square, and so 50 feet worth of craft is 5d8, which is also a single 50-foot square, which is 1d4. 1d4 times 10 is at most 50 damage. Is at most 40 damage, while a 50-foot craft dealing 5d8 damage is at most 40 damage. So we've been able to synchronize the scaling from 5-foot craft to 50-foot vessels and have a smooth transition from that 5-foot scale up to a larger space. So, anyway, I'm happy about that. Being able to move from the different scale is an accomplishment I haven't seen in any other work yet. So there's a lot of language that goes on to making that scaling work, but it's very satisfying. It legit works. So let's see what we need to do here. We want to have types of rams. Rams deal bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage. Ram attacks can score a critical hit when you roll a natural 20. In addition to making ship melee attacks, rams have the following properties when used in a ram attack. Bludgeoning: when a pilot hits with a ram attack using a bludgeoning ram, roll the damage dice twice and add them together. In addition, you can choose to automatically scuttle the target as part of the attack. Piercing. Piercing: when a pilot hits with a ram attack using a piercing ram, roll the weapon damage dice. Weapon damage dice twice and add them together. In addition, you can choose to automatically grapple the target as part of the attack by impaling it. Slashing: when a pilot hits with a ram attack using a slashing ram, roll the weapon damage dice 3 times instead of twice and add them together. And then none if a ship has... Oops, I gotta work on that. If a ship... I'm gonna pull that up. And then we'll have to be done for the day, but we'll come back and start building rams tomorrow morning. So none. If a ship is not equipped with a ram, it can still make a ram attack dealing bludgeoning damage. Roll 1 damage die as determined by the size of the ship, as listed above. The attacking ship takes this much damage as well. And of course, if you don't use the bonus action to make a ram attack, as we discussed on the previous page, you are effectively crashing. So, and we have collision rules later on in the exploration section. So you have rules about like asteroids smashing into moons, moons smashing into planets, planets falling into the sun, as well as like characters being hit by ships and stuff like that too. So, all right. So, but we are at 8 o'clock. I got to go for the day. I'm going to be back tomorrow morning. If this stuff is interesting to you and you want to see more of it, I'm here every day, so be welcome to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at Phil Kearney. I always post when I go live there. I'll be back tonight in about 11 hours to do cartography for the Eberron maps that we've been building. Looking forward to seeing you guys. Thanks a lot for being here, and I'll see you on the other side. Cheers.